and this client was gone in 10 minutes. No warning. They said, Jeff, we love you. Everyone loves you. You have 100% approval rate. Now, that
Wow.
opened up enormous opportunity for me. It forced me to reach out to contacts, find some new clients. I've built it back up, but I have purposely never let any client become more than 10% of my practice.
This episode is brought to you by Lawfully Pro, the AI-powered case tracking and client portal for immigration law firms. It pulls real-time updates from USCIS, DOL, NVC, and EOIR, so you never miss a status change. Trusted by over 150 firms. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Power Up Your Practice. I'm excited to have Jeff Goldman as my guest today, and we're going to be talking about finding your purpose of what type of practice and finding your niche within the niche. And so I'm excited to have Jeff. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ruby.
So we were talking before we started about how I met you in line for pizza at the AILA annual conference in Denver at the improv show that Roman organizes and the Power Strategy Group help sponsor. But you were I was definitely glad to meet you, and you're a very interesting character. So I'm glad we stayed in touch. I don't know if I invited you to be on the podcast right then, but
You invited me to stay in touch, and was huge because I knew I liked you right away.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's funny because we have a law practice management podcast, but I feel like we've been talking a lot about like operations or tech or HR or wellness or leadership or something. But we haven't really just had like the talking about sort of like running your practice or choosing your niche or that type of thing. So I really want to have more guests that sort of can like learn nuggets of wisdom of like how you did it. And so tell us a little bit about your practice and sort of how you got into it, and then let's see where it goes from there.
Well, out of law school, I went to work for a real estate law firm, and they taught me how to do residential closings, and I learned a lot about that area of the law. But it became clear to me after 3 years that a lot of what I was doing was not making me feel like a lawyer. I was just simply having people sign documents and explaining to them the documents, and certainly not looking up the law or considering the law on every case. Now and then it was necessary, but it just wasn't thrilling me, and I didn't know quite what to do about it. And one day, a real estate client came in for closing, and he called me up the next day and said he enjoyed working with me and would I help him with his immigration. I said I didn't know anything about it, and I'm not an immigration lawyer, so you're going to have to find an immigration lawyer. He said, no, you're my lawyer. You need to help me with my immigration. And that's the way it works around the world. So to humor him, I looked up immigration and started looking around the internet, and there happened to be a continuing ed course coming up. So I took the course literally just 2 weeks later. It was the most interesting 4 hours I've ever had in an educational setting. Loved it more than any class I took in law school. And they were so encouraging. They were the nicest lawyers presenting. They were very encouraging. And this was way back in 1990 when the last time there was a massive overhaul of the immigration law. And they said, one of the speakers said, if you're thinking of getting into immigration law, this is the time because you out there know as much as we do. They just changed everything. I said, oh, okay, I could do this. An interesting part was I came home from the seminar and my neighbor said, how's it going? I said, great. Just took an interesting course in immigration law. She said, oh, I have someone who's going to call you tomorrow. And I went into a panic. Like, what are you talking about? I've taken a 4-hour course. I can't help a client yet. The person called me. They needed an H-1B. And what's interesting is had that person needed a deportation lawyer or a family-based lawyer, that might have set the trajectory of my career. But she needed an H-1B. I learned what I could learn, made one phone call to a friend of a friend who was an immigration lawyer, and I filed it, and it was approved. And the phone rang twice the next day.
Wow.
Heard you got my friend an H-1B. I helped those people. The phone rang 4 times the next day. This has not stopped in
Wow.
30 plus years of helping people, doing a good job, and the phone rings. That doesn't really exist in every area of the law, certainly not in real estate, where it's very competitive. And when real estate's good, every solo and small practitioner is a real estate attorney. So
Hmm.
I was immediately attracted to the immigration law because I felt like a lawyer. I felt like I was looking up the law on every case and rereading it and rethinking about how that law applied to these set of facts, and fascinated how just a small change in the facts changed the outcome according to the law. So very interesting to me. And I frankly, I've been blessed. I've had 30 consecutive years of loving what I do.
Oh, that's a wonderful story and a great journey. So you're the founder of Goldman and Partners Immigration Law LLP, and you're where? I mean, how? What's the size of your firm, and where are you based out of?
We're based in Boston. The first time I founded an immigration firm, it was Jeff Goldman Immigration, and it was just me. And I hung a
Uh-huh.
shingle and I said, I want to do this. And I was doing it and loving it, and work kept coming in. I've had a lot of good breaks along the way. Um, it just 6 years into my foray into immigration law, I got a call from one of the country's largest law firms where a friend of mine was a partner. And they said, Jeff, we're going to open an immigration group. So different for us, but something's going on out there. We're now representing, we're doing hundreds and hundreds of initial public offerings, and everyone's a foreign national and they need an immigration lawyer. And they convinced me to close my practice and come work for them. That was an unbelievable experience, and it was very fortunate. What was also very fortunate, it was that 6 years in, that firm imploded, and
Oh,
380 corporate partners went to five. They all went to only five law firms, the five largest
whoa,
corporate law firms in the United States, and all of those law firms don't have an immigration group. So I became
whoa,
the go-to guy, not only benefiting from the 380 people who had been working with, but everyone they were meeting at their law firms now started sending me their immigration group. So that was just an incredibly fortuitous thing that definitely set the trajectory for my career, because now I've now gotten away from the big law firms. And 16 years ago, I hung a shingle again. I called it Jeff Goldman Immigration 2. And I had just one associate attorney. 16 years later, we are 34 people doing nothing but immigration law, with 11 attorneys, 28 paralegals, and I changed the name to Goldman and Partners. So that's really how I've been able to build this practice, was through deep connections with corporate lawyers who don't have an immigration group in their law firm.
wow. That's and so your practice area, is it predominantly employment based now, or what
Yeah,
would you say?
90% employment
Yeah.
based, with a strong family base and strong pro bono asylum practice. That's just been a love that I fell into 30 years ago. I was told at my first meeting of AILA, which is the American Immigration Lawyers Association, someone said to me, every self-respecting immigration attorney takes on pro bono asylum. I said, oh, I can do that. There's all these organizations across the country that train lawyers and mentor lawyers and help them with their first asylum case. And I won my first asylum case, and I saved, like, these people's lives were at risk, and I wanted another and another and another. And at one point, I was mentoring 45 lawyers at the same law firm, massive corporate law firm. 45 of them took on an immigration case, and I just became their mentor. So I stopped for 3 years taking on any of my own cases, and loving that I was mentoring them. And a lot of time, but wow, what a benefit. And that really helped me solidify my relationship with that corporate law firm and all of these incredible corporate attorneys, and has led to untold numbers of referrals for really good immigration work.
Wow. Oh, I don't know, it's just beautiful to see like how giving to the community can reap benefits from
Yeah,
the connections and that you wouldn't expect. In fact, what you just said, it reminds me of some nonprofit positions that are literally to mentor like a lot of private attorneys who don't normally do immigration but are trying to take on a case and help out. And there's so many great stories of non-immigration attorneys who experience, take on one pro bono case, and then they just sort of always have a heart for immigration, especially because they're helping on like a asylum or a
right.
Violence Against Women Act type of case or victim of a crime.
A lot of these big corporate law firms require all first and second year associates to be doing a pro bono asylum case because you learn so much about law and analyzing law and litigation, and it brings in all the skills that these corporate law firms want their lawyers to have. And that's how I ended up representing 45. I was mentoring 45 cases because that was the total first and second year associates at that law firm.
This episode is sponsored by Candle AI, the legal email assistant that helps legal teams spend less time on client emails. You heard me right, spending less time on emails. Candle AI works with both Gmail and Outlook, so you don't have to learn a new tool, and then it connects with popular case management systems like Clio, Filevine, iNetSum, and more to come. It instantly shows you your case and the client details the moment you open a client email, and right inside your inbox. Then that means less context switching and time spent jumping to different tabs to figure out what you need to respond. Candle can also draft context-aware responses to client emails and makes it easy to create, edit, and manage your email templates. If you want to save time and take back control of your inbox, check out Candle AI. I highly suggest it.
So I also see that you have many years of representing extraordinary ability scientists and entrepreneurs from like MIT, Harvard, Y Combinator. Can you share any stories or any insights on that?
Yeah, I think how it all started is a great story, and there's a lot of takeaway points. So I'm going back 30 years. I had just hung a shingle, Jeff Goldman immigration, and someone walked in without an appointment, and he said, "Hey, are you the immigration lawyer? Do you know about extraordinary ability?" I had heard of it. I understood in general that there was a expedited green card if you could prove you're among the very top in the world, but certainly had never done one. And I said, "Of course I know. Of course I do those." And he sat down, and we sat down, and he's telling me, and I'm writing and writing and writing. And just after 15 minutes, he stopped and he said, "Let me guess, you don't know. You've never done this before, have you?" I said, I said, "You are
You could
correct."
tell.
He said, "Oh, well, today's your lucky day because actually I wasn't going to hire you anyway to do the work. I did it. I prepared my own petition. I just want somebody to read it over and comment." I said, "Oh, I can do that." He paid me some fee. I spent that night reading it over and researching on the internet and looking up everything I could. And I sent him back about 20 comments. He said they were the most helpful comments he could have imagined. He filed his petition and it was approved. He called me the next week and said, "I have 4 clients for you. And can you come speak at MIT regarding extraordinary ability?" I was like, "What?" I mean, what a break. I mean, it's hard to break
Yeah.
into universities and especially MIT. And I'm local to Boston, but still, it was the biggest break in my career. He had me speak not to an MIT curated audience, but he had me speak to the Russian club at MIT. There were 25 people in the room. And after I spoke, 4 of them hired me. One of
Wow.
them then had me do an extraordinary for his close friend from MIT who was Chinese. And just 2 months later, I was invited to speak at the Chinese
The
Student
Chinese
Scholars
Club.
Association at MIT. These days, they require you to pay thousands of dollars just to speak in front of the Chinese Student Scholars Association at any university. But there I was years ago. I think I left with $50,000 worth of work after that one seminar. And I was a young lawyer. That was big for me. That
Wow.
really launched my career and my love for representing entrepreneurs because these MIT folks were so entrepreneurial. And it was a big part of proving they're extraordinary. So that really launched the trajectory of my niche within my niche. So my niche is immigration, but even within immigration, representing entrepreneurs is really where I've made my career. It's what I love doing. It's exciting every day. And there's a lot of people who say that's what they do, but they haven't done that much. And I've really been around the block now. I mean, easily 25 years of representing mostly MIT, Harvard, and Y Combinator entrepreneurs.
Wow. Well, speaking about the niche, like, why do you think it's valuable to have find a niche within a niche, or even have one in the first place? I mean, some people might. I see some people who graduate and they list all laundry list of things that they do, but I mean, I practice in a big city like you do, and I find that it's a little bit better to be more of a sort of an expert in a smaller area. But I'm sure it might be different if you were practicing like Montana or something like that. But anyway,
Right.
what have you seen the value in having a niche within a niche?
I think there's a lot of competition out there. There's a lot of,
Hmm. Yeah.
no matter what area of the law you're in, there's big competition. When I was back years ago, when I was a real estate attorney, I, I wanted to be, I wanted to be known for something particularly special. And back then, condo conversion was big in real estate, and I decided I'm going to become a real expert on the real estate laws concerning condo conversion. And I was on my way when I mercifully was rescued by immigration law and put that aside. But even back then, I just saw the value of finding an expertise. Not to say that I'm not an expert in all areas of employment-based immigration. I am. I'm not an expert at all in family-based or removal-based immigration, but I have expertise. And then, depending on who the audience is, I can really talk the talk to entrepreneurs and understand not just the law and not just their evidence, but I understand them and
Hmm.
their concerns, their fears, and where they've been and where they're going. And I think if I didn't have this particular niche for entrepreneurial immigration, I don't think I could have been as helpful or been so successful in getting referrals from current clients.
You know, I agree with you. Like, what I've noticed is that, which is, it's fascinating with your first story about the guy. He figured out you hadn't done it before, but he still wanted to hire you to review, and
Right.
he found value in your responses, and that's a wonderful story. But what I've normally seen is that they size you up real fast, like
Oh, yeah.
whether you have experience, like they could smell fear, they could smell, and just having little antidotes from other cases that you've handled, I think that calms them down. Like, oh yeah, they know their stuff, or especially if it's a combo of the reviews, a referral, and they have a good connection with you in the consultation. But
Yes.
I find that, like, sometimes when you're trying to add another area, like, it's got to be a little bit of luck and at the right place at the wrong time, and a lot of drive and elbow grease to go into that space as well.
Hmm.
But then once you get in it and you enjoy it, then it can be a wonderful thing.
Yeah. Without no doubt.
So you not only have the law firm, but you're also the co-founder of the Build Fellowship by Open Avenues.
That's
Um,
great.
so tell us a little bit more about what that is.
Well, Uh, it all stems from one of the largest areas of immigration practice is called H-1B. And for those in the audience who don't know what H-1B is, it's the leading way that U.S. employers hire foreign national professionals, scientists, engineers. It's the leading visa they can use. The big problem with H-1B is that they're limited in number. There's only 85,000 every fiscal year, but the demand exceeds 300, 400, sometimes 500,000 every year. So the Immigration Service conducts a lottery, picks out 85,000 winners, and too bad for everyone else for the whole year. This is devastating to U.S. employers who need the talent, and really devastating to foreign nationals who have come here, spent money paying full tuition on education, and they graduate. And yes, they might get 1 or 2 or 3 years of practical training, but if they don't win that H-1B lottery, they're pretty much out. So I was realizing that year after year, I was spending too much time talking to employers about what do you do when you're in that situation. And I had always talk about that one solution is that there is something called a cap exempt H-1B. So there are certain employers who don't need to enter the lottery. They can always file an H-1B anytime they need them, like a university or a nonprofit affiliated with a university. I'm so sorry.
No problem.
Or a nonprofit affiliated with a university. They can always file a cap exempt H-1B. And I would say to clients, if you could find a way to get a part-time job with a university or a nonprofit affiliated with a university, they could file an H-1B for you right now, and you can get H-1B status. And then there's a second section of the H-1B law called concurrent H-1Bs that says, if you're here in H-1B status, any employer can immediately get you a second H-1B without winning the lottery. And I kept reading those regulations and thinking about this and mapping this out. And finally I said, what would happen if I started my own nonprofit and found a way to affiliate it with universities? And I ran a cap-exempt H-1B organization that can always file H-1Bs. How can I partner with thousands of tech companies and pharmaceuticals who need these H-1Bs but can't win the lottery? So
Wow.
one of the best breaks I ever had was my daughter became fascinated with this nonstop conversation at the dinner table. And she said, Dad, you can't do this yourself. This is too good an idea. Let me quit my job. Let me help you run this nonprofit and let's do it. And so she did. And my daughter, Danielle Goldman, really is now nationally recognized as the country's leading expert in cap-exempt H-1B visas. And she created with me the Build Fellowship. We work with lots of nonprofits out there. We get these nonprofits affiliated with universities, and they all become cap-exempt organizations. We are inundated with tech and life science companies and every company who have the key employee who didn't win the lottery and they need them. And there's no other solution for them to stay here and work legally. So the Build Fellowship takes the foreign national, vets out the best specialty occupation for a winning H-1B, and we place them with one of these nonprofits affiliated with the university who files an H-1B petition, gets it approved, and then the tech or life science or pharma company immediately can file their own H-1B without winning the lottery. So this was scary at first until we filed our first few, and they were like all approved. And then 5 more were approved. And we thought, oh my God, what's happening here? And then word got out and we became inundated. By our 10th approval, USCIS called us and said, hi, we're not sure what's going on. We don't really know who you are, but we've now approved 10 of these. And we're now rethinking this. Can we come in and meet you? And we said, sure. My daughter was nervous. I said, this is the best break we could have. And they sent a team of 3 auditors. They looked at every petition. They interviewed every foreign national for our 10 approvals. They interviewed each tech company who had filed the concurrent H-1B, and they interviewed every university that we were partnered with. And they said, wow, this is compliant with the law. Keep going.
Wow.
All I know is that we're at 385 consecutive approvals. And every one of those 385 tech companies that needed the full-time H-1B on top of our part-time cap-exempt H-1B, they've all been approved. And it's going really well. So my daughter is running 1,000 miles an hour, and I'm spending 10% of my time helping her and 90% running my law practice.
Well, so you've got a nonprofit, you're working with your daughter, you have your law practice, which is like what, your third or something law practice or something?
Yeah, my third iteration.
Okay, iteration. Yeah. So, I mean, I think this is really encouraging to those listening who, sometimes the path that you're going, it might not seem like, linear, or like where it's
Right,
going to lead or how
right,
it's going to go. But like what there's themes is that you find an opportunity, you're not afraid to try it out and see what happens. And then, to a combination of being at the right place and putting yourself out there and having the right attitude, yeah, wonderful thing. And a lot of times people would have just said that's an idea and not turn it into anything. I mean, so often people have these inventions or business ideas, but I think you're very entrepreneurial. You're surrounded by entrepreneurs. That's we usually have mostly a lot of entrepreneurs on the podcast in general, and like even the entrepreneurial lawyer type of a person.
right,
So
right.
how how
It's
do
not just
you?
immigration, Ruby. This
Yeah,
areas in every.
right.
I have a friend who, out of law school, went to work for a big firm, and all he did was defend banks
Uh-huh.
against people suing banks, and he did it for 10 years, and then he opened up his own litigation uh, firm, and he was representing the banks. Now he turned to representing people suing banks because he had that expertise from defending banks all those years. And then he opened his own company,
Oh.
geared toward helping people who have frustrations with banks. And it feeds work to his law practice. He also is very busy earning fees from the company, just as a consultant, helping people who are frustrated with banks and helping save them money before they start spending money litigating. He's able to calm them down and sometimes negotiate a settlement. But, he found a business that is a perfect juncture with his law practice, as I did. And I want to say one more thing. I spoke yesterday to an immigration lawyer. Her expertise I thought it was very bizarre. She had expertise in doing what's called EB3 green cards. These are when an employer can sponsor a waitress at a restaurant,
Uh-huh.
the checkout girl at 7-Eleven, the guy who carries heavy sacks in a warehouse. They can be legally sponsored for an EB3. Now, most of the people I know, like me, we do it. We tend to do more high level professionals, but she had this niche in representing the different lower level of employment,
Hmm.
and she opened a new company also
Oh.
geared to just servicing that demographic with their not just immigration. She's now doing everything for that demographic because she became a trusted voice for this niche within her niche of immigration. And I think she's now helping them buy real estate, to find real estate.
Hmm.
She's doing a lot with real estate, but using this
Yeah.
population, this demographic. It's fascinating, and it just reminds me that there's so much that a lawyer can do within the area you have passion about.
Hmm. No, I agree. It's sort of funny. I didn't know where we were going to go with our topic today, but today it's tonight my law class I'm teaching is about side hustles. And I wrote a whole chapter in my book about I like saying side hustles. It's fun. But synergistic business opportunities,
Right.
right? And it's beautiful when it there's a connection of some sort, or if it can feed to the law practice or some way. Like
Right.
that's awesome, so you're not like running. But if some people like running distinct, like I have a friend who has like some dog grooming business and has a big removal defense practice, but he likes it, I think, because it's something completely different, and
Yes.
so you just need something else. But even with the law practice management, small business consulting, there is a connection with my law practice. Sometimes it doesn't seem apparent when there's the synergies, but it's beautiful when you do and when you can see that impact. But I love that. Well, what are some of the what would you, for those listening, because you've had 3 iterations of your law practice, you've been practicing what 30 or I don't know, a lot of years,
Yeah. Yeah.
a good amount.
34 years. Yeah.
34 years. So you saw like IRA and 245I and all that
Yeah.
good stuff. And before we started, I asked you, have you ever seen it this intense? And because we're both immigration practitioners in immigration. And what did you say?
Never as intense as it is now. And I've said this many times over, but the truth is, this is the craziest, busiest time, and from every area of immigration, from corporate
Mhm.
and employment immigration, companies stressed out, foreign national professionals with PhDs stressed out, people who have been here for years on temporary protected status because their country was suffering through some crazy nightmare situation. All of these people being told you're out now in 2025. They're off the wall trying to find solutions. The Trump administration attack on people with legitimate asylum claims, they are off the wall. And it's coming from every direction. And so we're just running full speed, trying to keep pace, and we need to expand, but I don't want to overexpand, and I need to
Right.
hire, but I don't want to hire if I don't need to. So all of these things are coming into place right now.
Right. We have there's AI, there's immigration changes, there's economy fluctuation, there's a lot of movement happening. Before I ask some practical like wisdom nuggets of having your firm and your businesses, I wanted to ask how do you think the recent changes with the H-1B $100,000 fee, how is that going to impact your nonprofit and or like how do you see it impacting H-1Bs in general?
Yeah, well, I'm very happy with last week's clarification from the federal government that despite the terrible rollout and announcements and confusion that they created, which I think they purposely created,
Mm,
they've now calmed the situation down by making it very clear. The only people who would have to pay the $100,000 fee are those who are outside the US at the time the first initial H-1B petition is filed.
mm,
So that is about 5% of my immigration practice. And I'm breathing a sigh of relief because I thought it was about to affect 40% of my immigration practice. Um, Surprisingly, a few of the clients who are affected by this said, yeah, I think for that person, we're going to pay the $100,000 fee, but not for that person. So some people are going to go ahead and pay it. But I don't see this having a major impact on most immigration law practices, except for those people who only represent foreigners who are outside the US getting an H-1B, such as one of these big
mhm,
Indian job shop companies. To be
mm,
honest, I don't feel badly for them. I think that they've been abusing H-1Bs for years. And I think
mm.
this was the main thing that Trump was trying to accomplish. I think he could have done it in a much clearer, easier way than this $100,000 fee. But um, I think it's, in the end of the day, I think it could be okay. And make maybe
Okay.
the H-1B system a little stronger.
Well, and I agree with you. The rollout and the communication could have been done infinitely better. It's sort of like an example of what not to do for all the people whose weekends and lives were ruined that
Yeah,
that end of September. And poor people were like landing and then like trying to rush back to get on a plane back to America. I mean, people don't really know all the stories of the insanity. But anyway, we don't have to go into that. But it's just like the power of words, the power of giving time to clarify, the time to have Q&A, to let things breathe. Like I remember speaking of like my only iteration of my law practice, I guess you could say, was 16 years ago. I actually did change my name, but it's and the entity, but it's basically the same company. But anyway, and I remember under Obama, we'd get an announcement like 6 months or 12 months before something happened, and we could really like let it get incorporated in the strategy. And now we're finding out things like instantaneously if we
yeah.
get the memo at all.
Right.
Anyway,
Right.
so so you've been around the block, as you say. What if for people who are just starting their practice or have had it for, I don't know, less than 10 years or so, or even just maybe more, like what are some of the best practices that you like the wisdom? I mean, it could be about management,
Yeah.
marketing, about
Yeah.
staff. What would
Okay.
you say?
A few things. Get great people to work for you. Make sure you enjoy working with them, and then pay them well. I think I overpay, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. I've made a good living for myself. Um, I am happy. I have now 32 people. 17 have been with me for over 10 years. That's a lot.
Wow, that is a
That,
lot.
and you can ask them. They were like, "Well, this is great. Why would I?" We there's no screaming, there's no yelling. Um, Jeff gives us the benefit of the doubt. Jeff does not micromanage. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Jeff asks a lot of questions and gives us the ability to get back to him.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's sort of how I run the show. And now my next tier of senior lawyers, they're doing the same thing. And together we're making it a really good environment to work. So even my top tier lawyers, I did not make them partners. I thought about it, wanted to, but people advised me don't do it. Just overpay them, give them ridiculous bonuses. So I said, okay, so that's what I'm doing. And I don't know if they're going to listen to this, but frankly, their response has been, okay, we're good. And now they've stayed with me. One's been with me 16 years, 115 and 114. Those are my top three lawyers. And
Wow.
it's they just have no interest in opening their own firm or going somewhere else because we got something good going. They really love our team. I've also been very quick to let people go because I made a mistake or
Uh-huh.
another lawyer hired the wrong person.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, if I don't enjoy working with a person, forget it. I got to let you go. I'm not going to walk into my own office and say, "Ooh, I can't talk to that person today because it's stressful." So we really have a terrific team, and I think that's critical.
I agree with that. That's all really good news. And it's sometimes it's like you're like, yes, that all sounds good, but getting that to that point, can be hard. Especially when you're starting to build the practice initially. Like, because if you make the wrong hire, then you depend too much on one person, but you,
Yeah.
you have to just make some tough decisions and do the right thing. So,
I think
go ahead.
one more quick thing, Ruby.
Yeah.
One thing I love is that I learned the hard way to not rely on one particular client. I had
Mm.
built a client from early on, even before 17 years ago, back when I was at a big law firm. And when I opened my own firm, they became 35% of my practice and ended up being up to 42% of my practice.
Wow.
And these clients can be gone in a day, and this client was gone in 10 minutes. No warning. They said, "Jeff, we love you. Everyone loves you. You have 100% approval rate. Yeah, we're jumping to Fragaman." And I said, Whoa, what are you talking about? Can you pack up the boxes?" I'm like, "Wait, we talk every day. You're my friend." "Yes. So could you pack your boxes and send me the list?" And they were gone. Now that
Wow.
opened up enormous opportunity for me. It forced me to reach out to contacts, find some new clients. I've built it back up, but I have purposely never let any client become more than 10% of my practice. And I think in other areas of the law, it's the same. You win some and you lose some. And you have good clients, and suddenly you're taking a really good client from another lawyer, but you're also losing one now and then. That's the way it works. But mercifully, if I do lose a really good client, it's never more than 10% of my practice, and we're able to rebound and even use it as opportunity. So I think it can be very dangerous to rely on one or two big clients.
I agree. I used to teach this class called like minimizing risk for small business owners, and that was one of the like I don't know 15 lessons was not to have too much business with it one vendor and also one clientele. And your story reminds me of something I read in Mike Morris's Fireproof, a book that's out about how he was depending a lot on referrals, and then from this one source, and then all of a sudden it just like poof went away, and he had to reinvent himself and fill in that pipeline. That's so true.
Yeah.
Are you feeling overwhelmed by all the different things you have to do to run a law firm? Well, you're not alone. So many law firm owners are in the same boat. That's where Staffy steps in. More than 90 firms just like yours are leaning on their bilingual virtual staff for legal, administrative, marketing, and client-facing work, plus their full HR support. I currently have 11 team members with Staffy across my own firm and Power Strategy Group, and it's been a total game changer. Schedule a free initial consultation at staffy.cc, that's stafi.cc, and use the code RUBY, R-U-B-Y, for $500 off.
Well, I'm sure we could talk for a really long time, but I'm moving over to my rapid questions, where I get to know you a little bit better on a different level. So one of them is, what's your favorite board game?
I think it's backgammon.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I love backgammon. It's constant thinking, constant strategy, and fast-paced if you're playing with someone who's also fast-paced. And if you lose, you just set up the pieces quickly and you play again.
My husband's Turkish, and that's a very common game to play at the cafes in Turkey. And that's where I first learned how to play it. So, but anyway, yeah, it's been a little while since I played it, but that's fun. What would you consider your superpower?
I think it might be my ability to listen to my clients and not feel I have to fill in every gap of silence, and every time I ask a question and I'm listening to them, something interesting comes out of that conversation, which is why, even though I work only on flat fees, I don't limit the number of times I speak directly with the company or the foreign national. I want to speak to them as often as they want to, because every question they have opens up important information that makes their application or petition stronger. So listening, I really think, and I've been told after many, many consultations, Jeff, that was the best consultation I had. You listened, and every time you listened, you asked me more questions. And each time it came to another interesting strategy that you were suggesting. So I think it's my listening skills.
Oh, that's awesome. What would you say is a habit that contributes to your success?
Well, it's a bad habit, but it does contribute to my success.
A bad habit that contributes to.
I'm addicted to answering email as soon as it comes in, even at the expense of me veering away from what I'm working on. So it's a bad habit, but I might be working on 4 or 5 emails at the same time. And I then might have a quick, a colleague walks in with a 10-minute question, and I go back to looking at my screen. And even before I continue those 4 responses to the emails, I'm looking at whatever new email comes in. And I just think it just keeps me on top of what I need to be on top of at that moment. I don't go more than a few hours without making sure I don't have an open email where I haven't finished it and hit send. But I just think responding to email really quickly has served me really well.
Do you have an EA or do you use any AI type of programs to help you draft and respond to emails?
No, Ruby, that's the biggest failure of my practice. We're running too busy. There's too many AI products out there. Yeah, you must see it too. Everyone, I get 5, 6, 7 cold call emails a day. This product, that product, we'll help you with this, we'll help you with that. It's overwhelming. And I know I need to, and I know I will, but for 2025 and Trump's first year and everything else going on, I said, I'm not dealing with it this year. So I don't have anything. I'm listening to my clients. I'm taking notes. The other lawyers in my office all have someone recording every conversation. I don't. I can't. Maybe I'm too old and too old fashioned, but I can't deal with it, because when I do have that someone record, I don't have time to go back to it. But my own notes, I know exactly what I want to say in getting back to the client. So that's how I'm
Well,
rolling.
that's cool. Yeah, it's important not to get overwhelmed by the shiny object syndrome of all the crazy stuff that's out there. But at the same time, I've adapted some transcript type of tools with the consult, and that's made my life so much better, because then I feel like I can listen more. And then also I've been using like Candle for some drafting for emails, and I have my EA, but we could talk later about that. But yeah, there's a lot, and you win some. You got room for we all have room for improvement as well.
Yeah.
What would you say is a podcast or a book that you would highly recommend to our listeners?
Yeah. Well, I've sort of fallen into recently a series of books called the Orphan series of books. Maybe not well known, but the author Greg Hurwitz is unbelievable. And he wrote a series of books about this group of orphans who were taken in by the American government when they were orphaned as babies and raised to be first-class international spies. And it's fascinating, and it's exciting and fast-paced and well-written, and each one is different, but each one is about one of these different orphans who has not superpowers. They're people, but their skills in self-defense, in breaking into hacking into computer systems, and in getting out of tough problems, and they're all good. The US government did this to protect America, so they're all doing something unbelievably exciting as a good person and fighting evil, and it's a wonderful series of books.
Oh, wow. I was about to say, it almost sounds like the premise of the Bourne movies or something, but a little off and different.
It is similar, yeah.
Well, Jeff, thanks so much for your time. Well, how can people find you to stay in touch and continue conversation for all the things we talked about today?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm the only Jeff Goldman immigration lawyer on the East Coast. There is a Jeff Goldman immigration lawyer in Seattle. That's not me, but I'm in Boston. My email is Jeff at G as in Goldman, P as in Partners, immigration.com. My website, gpimmigration.com. And I'd love to stay in touch with people. I love helping and mentoring whoever I can.
Awesome. Well, we had a great conversation about choosing area to practice, and the value of having a niche or a niche within a niche, and then also some really good nuggets about entrepreneurial mindset and synergistic businesses and how to help your law firm. But then at the same point, other good nuggets of wisdom that you shared from all of your years of practice. So thank you for being on the show, and thanks everyone for listening. Feel free to stay in touch with us on the School Community Power Hub, as well as check out the book Power Up Your Practice, and we'll see you next time. Have a great week.
Thank you for tuning in to Power Up Your Practice. I'm Ruby Powers, and it's been a pleasure sharing this time with you. We love your reviews, so if you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us one and share this podcast with someone else so that they can know what you've been learning on our show. And make sure to check out the Power Up Your Practice book. It's available in paperback and Kindle on Amazon. It's packed with 25 chapters of strategies to grow and streamline your firm. And we also have the free Power Hub community on School to keep the conversation going in between the episodes. So make sure to keep powering up your practice, and we'll see you next time.